Good morning. How you doing today?
Very well.
Can you please tell us your name and your job title?
So my name is Nathan Hochman. I'm the Los Angeles County District Attorney. I grew up in Los Angeles. Then I went to school back east. Actually went to law school up here in the Bay Area in Stanford. Came back to LA, clerked for a federal judge. Went right to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I was a prosecutor there for 7 years. And as an assistant U.S. attorney, I did the whole range of cases, everything from narcotics trafficking, gang cases, international money laundering. I was the environmental crime section leader, and so I did air, sea, and land pollution cases. Went after police corruption cases and government fraud. After that, I have been actually a defense attorney for 25 years. I've represented individuals, companies, religious organizations, everything you can represent on the defense side. And then before I got this current job, I had the chance to go back to Washington, D.C., and I was the Assistant Attorney General running the U.S. Department of Justice's Tax Division. Back there, it was a great job. Had about 500 people working for me. We did criminal, civil, and appellate tax cases around the nation. And then I had a chance to run for office and became the elected District Attorney of Los Angeles in December of 2024.
Okay, so why be the District Attorney of Los Angeles?
You know, in Los Angeles, I lived there my whole life, and I watched safety go in the wrong direction for the prior 4 years, from about 2020 to 2024. All the numbers of crime were going up, everything from violent crimes, property crimes, hate crimes, burglaries, auto thefts, everything. And the district attorney at that time was actually a guy who was a district attorney here up in San Francisco. His name was George Gascon. And he came in with a different idea of how to go about criminal justice that wasn't working. And I thought with my 35 years of experience on both sides of the aisle, I could hopefully do a better job. He also had created a really dysfunctional situation in his own office. In fact, 98% of the people in his own office voted to support his recall, effectively that he be fired. That's not a good way to run a prosecutor's office if 98% of the people think you're doing a bad job.
Okay, so you said that crime rates went up during his 4 years.
Oh, it did.
That was his fault?
Well, it's interesting how it's your fault, and let me tell you why. He came in on his first day of the job, and he basically came in with an idea called decarceration.
Yeah.
And what decarceration is it says up front that certain crimes and certain criminals would not be prosecuted no matter what the facts of the law was.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a couple examples. He said for juveniles, that juveniles would not be prosecuted for misdemeanors. Yeah. That means if someone was under 18 and they stole just under $950, they would never be prosecuted in LA County by the DA's office.
Correct.
So it's not shocking that you started to see social media videos come up where 12 to 15-year-olds would ride their bike to a 7-Eleven, run inside, ransack the place, run outside, stuff their pants with stolen goods, and bike away, knowing that nothing was going to happen. Right. And in a situation where there's no consequences and no accountability, you have a situation where the respect for the law, where the respect for anything in our society starts to erode. And I didn't replace it, and this is the key. My idea was not to replace an extreme idea of decarceration with the other extreme of mass incarceration.
Right.
Both extreme policies do not work. What I replaced it with is what I call the hard work middle or the hard middle. And what it says is that we're going to look at each case individually, look at each individual defendant, the defendant's background, look at the crime committed and the impact on the victim to determine who the true threats are to public safety and need to be behind bars. Those are often the repeated criminals. And the ones that aren't. Your first-time nonviolent offender, as an example, should not be going to prison. In fact, we should use the alternatives to prison for that particular person, whether it's community service, whether it's restitution, pay it back if you stole something, or if they have a serious drug addiction that got them to commit the crime, offer them a diversion program. But the offer is an offer they have to make. In other words, they could choose prison and go to prison, or they can choose an 18-month rigorous rehab program that says if you can get through it one day at a time, which is actually really hard, we're going to give you a certificate at the end and wipe the crime off your record.
Got you. So what you're saying is, so instead of not prosecuting them, you prosecute them, but you provide an alternative to incarceration?
You know, you can view it as accountability. What we're doing is we're holding people proportionally accountable for their actions. So if you steal $600, you shouldn't be going to state prison for 10 years. That's ridiculous. Right. But also, if you steal $600, we shouldn't pretend you didn't steal anything.
Right.
Because I deal with a whole lot of people in society. I deal with the small business owners who have their life savings in a business, and they just watch their profits and their life savings walk out the door as people are coming in every single day and taking stuff and not paying for it. And again, what you don't want to have happen is that the store owner says, you know what, I don't trust the justice system anymore. I'm going to take justice into my own hands. So that the next time someone comes in, instead of them letting them just walk out the store, they take a baseball bat and they beat the bejesus out of them. Or worse yet, they'll take a gun and shoot them. You do not want people to engage in self-help when it comes to justice. They need to trust that the justice system will actually bring justice to them and then let it do its job.
So as a former thief myself, right, I know that these things been going on before the George Gascon administration.
Well,
you know, even this large smash and grabs, right?
And they always will. I mean, at some level, they always will. The question is, can you create deterrence in society to deal with the bulk of it? And here's why I say deterrence.
Okay.
My job, in fact, I view as a failure of the criminal justice system if all I've done after 4 years is fill the prisons to the breaking point. That's the failure of the system.
Right.
If the system's working well and is effective, I've been able to deter people from committing the crimes in the first place, saving a whole lot of victims in the process. And so the question, of course, is, well, how do you deter people from committing crimes?
Right.
Generally, there's two things that people who have been in this field look at to deter people from committing crimes. The first is that people have to believe they're going to get caught. Because if you don't believe you're going to get caught, the chances are you just keep committing enough crimes until you think you're going to get caught, or you get bad luck and you get caught.
Right.
The second thing is that if you do get caught, you have to suffer meaningful consequences. Now, what does meaningful consequences mean? It means that not that you go to do 10 years in prison, you steal $600.
Right.
But it means that something happens and ratchets up. So if you steal one time, you get a certain punishment. If you go back and do it again, you get a higher punishment. At some point, the consequences become meaningful for the person, so they stop committing the criminal act.
That sounds familiar. That almost sounds like 3 strikes.
You know, 3 strikes the notion of 3 strikes came about because, again, the system on that 3rd strike back in 1994, when that statute was passed, they allowed someone with 2 strikes to get out with virtually no punishment on the 3rd strike. And that person ended up killing a young girl again, which is the pattern that had been established by that particular criminal.
Right.
So the 3 strikes law was originally designed and eventually got modified to actually do that, to deal with people who didn't learn, quite candidly, from the first violent or serious crime that they committed. They got convicted, they went to prison, they committed a second violent or serious crime. They got convicted, they went to prison, and now they're committing a 3rd serious or violent crime. So at that point, the impact on victims in society, and I mean innocent victims, they did not, in these situations, very, very often, they did nothing to deserve the harm that they suffered. And they're looking to see if the justice system is actually going to bring them justice. And so it's a balance, it's always a balance on how much the punishment should be to both give someone the feeling that they actually got justice in the system, but be proportional to the crimes that have been committed.
But the 3 strikes law doesn't deter crime. It didn't deter crime then, and it didn't prove to deter crime. So
it turns out that the studies are actually mixed. That if you actually, where the line is, whether it's 25 to life, whether it's 6 years to 10 years, whether it's 15 to 25, that line keeps waffling back and forth.
Okay. So you take an approach with what you call the hard middle. What does the hard middle work when it comes to resentencing?
So with resentencing, it is that same concept, that you look at all the factors of each case individually. And with resentencing, essentially you're looking at an additional factor that wasn't there at the time of the crime. And that additional factor is what someone has done since they've been sentenced. Here's what we're looking for. We're looking for people who have insight into their criminal actions, which means that they really understand what they did wrong, the full extent of it, and they not only show remorse, but they show the ability to now learn from it. Right. Then, when they get to prison, are they taking advantage of educational opportunities, rehab programs? Again, giving them the tools that if they are released back in society, they can succeed. So we look for all that when we get different cases brought to our attention on whether or not we want to advocate for resentencing.
Okay, so what do you look at to find that?
So again, what you'll look at, you'll certainly start with the prison file. And you'll look at what type of rehab programs they've taken, whether or not they've completed them, whether or not they've been a contributing and positive factor in whatever institutions they've been in. You want to see if they got any education and took advantage of education opportunities. You want to look at their risk assessment number. Is that a number that's been going up or a number that's been going down? In other words, have they engaged in various rule violations while they've been in the facility or not?
So from my experience, a person's insight is rarely on paper. How do you discover that?
Insights can be on paper, they can be in interviews that people have where the people interviewing them then report back. That can often be in a prison file. Often there's an attorney that can be involved. The attorney can submit declarations where someone has put their thoughts to paper with the attorney or without the attorney's help, and really made effectively a plea or a testament as to what they learn, what they intend to do with the rest of their life. Again, giving both the prosecutors the insight into what person they have become, and then ultimately it comes down to the judge, because even if a prosecutor recommends resentencing, the judge doesn't have to go along with it.
Right. Okay. So you're here today in San Quentin for the first time.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What do you hope to learn here?
I've heard, San Quentin for most of my life, and again, I grew up in California my whole life. It was known for death row. That's what it was known for, and I didn't give it, quite candidly, much thought beyond that. But I've heard from DA Brooke Jenkins and a whole bunch of people who've been here that there's a different model of what's going on, actually a rehabilitation model.
Right.
We have huge problems in the jail system in Los Angeles County. Los Angeles County jail system is one of the largest in the country, if not the world. Right. It is at its breaking point. Literally, there's a constitutional monitor who says you're not supposed to have more than 12,500 prisoners or inmates in the system, and they're at that level or more every single day. The rehab opportunities in the LA jail system are almost non-existent. Right. Because they have such a pressure of what to do. So I'm looking for facilities and ideas that will actually offer people who are going through that jail system something to do with their time, something that can make their lives more productive. Because when they get out, and it's not a question if, most of those people are getting out, certainly of the jail system. Right. They actually have something better to do than go back to a life of crime. Right. And so I've been told great things about San Quentin and what it's doing up here, and I'm very excited to see.
So you heard about our California model.
I did, and again, I don't want to travel to Norway to go find this model. It's a much shorter trip from LA to San Francisco.
Yeah, about 6 hours. So you're here to gain insight to help the LA County Jail. What else would you be here to gain?
It's an overall understanding of how facilities, the structures, and the programs can actually work with inmates. I've read about it. I've seen videos of it. I've seen some of your podcasts. Okay. But seeing it firsthand, there's no substitute.
Right. So how will that improve public safety if you were able to adopt what we do here in the LA County Jail? And how will that improve the way? So one thing about the California model, right, is that it's designed based on 4 pillars. One of the pillars is so that the actual institution can be a more trauma-informed organization. How will this make your office a more trauma-informed organization? And how will that impact the way you prosecute people and the way you handle resentencing cases?
It's interesting. So yeah, it could have 3 different purposes, a trip like this. One is to actually reform the jail system down in Los Angeles, which again deals with more people every single day than most jail systems anywhere in the country. Right. And you're right, the second aspect of it would be to inform prosecutors as to what's really going on with people once not only the crimes are done, but now they're in the system.
Right.
Both how they got there and what the opportunities are for them to leave successfully. Because trust me, the two pipelines I am focused on as a DA that feed into the criminal justice system are one that is obviously the kids.
Yeah.
Kids in elementary school, middle schools, high schools. We got to work with them to get them a level of education so that they understand what good choices look like and what the consequences of bad choices look like.
Definitely.
But the other pipeline comes in from the prison and jail system as well. The recidivism rate in Los Angeles, the rate at which people will go get out of a prison or a jail, commit a crime and be back in within 2 years is over 50%. The LA County jail system is failing. It's not dealing with that number at all.
Is there anything else you want to say to our viewers?
It's an absolute, it's a privilege to be here today. And I so appreciate, the opportunity not just to meet yourself and have this conversation, but to meet people who are going through these programs.
Right.
Because that's where programs come alive. And you can get a sense as to whether or not they're working or they're just a bunch of paper.
Right.
And when I've sensed that they're working and that they really transform people's lives, that's when it's easier to not only get behind them, but then when I get back out into my world, to tell people what I actually saw and the people I met, and try to convince them that these programs work as well.
Mr. Hochman, I appreciate you.
Thank you
very much. I don't know if I'm trolling to LA or not, but you drive a hard bargain, baby. That hard middle sound like something I don't want to be in between. I don't know.